I was telling Lurie that I just printed out my mail-in application, vote by mail application, and I'm going through it. And there's 2 pages, a lot of boxes to check, a lot of things to fill out. And you were saying that following instructions is going to be super important during this period of time.
It really is. I was actually participating in a Protect the Vote webinar for attorneys and civil rights activists today. And, one of the statistics that they touted that really surprised me, and I guess it shouldn't have surprised me, I was just stunned at the disparity, was that as it pertains to absentee voting, where you're sending in your ballot or vote by mail, and usually with absentee voting, it's because of a specific reason. Maybe you're sick, or maybe you're a part of a long-term care facility. You physically cannot make it to the polls, versus vote by mail, where everyone in your jurisdiction is going to receive a ballot, and you will be able to mail that ballot in. When it comes to the rules of your particular ballot, which vary by state and quite frankly can vary by municipality within your state. So, for example, the New York City ballot looks very different. Absentee ballot looks very different than does the absentee ballot for parts of upstate New York. If you are not clear on the rules, you can be seriously hemmed up. And the disparity they quoted was that for Black and Latinx communities who are voting by mail or using absentee voting, 1 out of every 20 ballots is discarded for failure to comply, versus white ballots or ballots from the white community, where 1 out of every 200 ballots is discarded for failure to comply, which might seem, 1 out of 20, 1 out of every 200. Extrapolate from that what happens when you spread that disparity across entire populations for entire municipalities. And you see that it can be a real challenge for people who are voting by mail or absentee voting to have their votes actually counted. So this is one of those areas where I become a fan of the phrase that we didn't build pyramids with a slave mentality. We had to have high African-centered architectural integrity in order to build those pyramids. We're going to need high African-centered architectural, social architecture, ingenuity, and attention to detail when it comes to participating in vote by mail or absentee voting, or even if you're going to be doing early voting, depending on where you're at. So, for example, there are some ballots, and this is something that we saw in Wisconsin, where you have to have a witness to your signature, which means that if you live by yourself during a pandemic, you're probably not going to have any other person in your house who can sign on as a witness. Even if they do sign on as a witness, I believe it was in North Carolina, I'll have to double check the jurisdiction, you have to have the witness sign, and they had to write in their own address. So some people got a witness's signature, did not have the witness include their address, mailed off the ballot is discounted. We have to be clear that the people who are counting our votes, they are people just like the rest of us. They're going to be going through thousands, millions in some jurisdictions of items, of ballots. And so it is going to be real easy. When I'm hiring somebody and I get too many resumes, if you spell 5 things wrong in the first 3 sentences, I'm not even looking at the rest, right? I'm just discounting it. You have to think about what people who are going to be counting your ballots are looking for. They're looking for the things that are going to be easily discounted. If the law says you have to have a witness signature and address, and you've got one but not the other, your ballot does not stand. So while I'm really excited that we are going to be able to do vote by mail or no-cause absentee voting for a number of jurisdictions, it's going to be really important that you know the rules for your jurisdiction. Call up your local board of elections. Find out if you have all the elements that you need for your ballot. If it's a specific type of license, some people are going to have a photocopy of their license included, which means you have to have a printer at home or access to having a copy made. These are all things that we have to be clear about. If your state requires a signature, an address, and a photocopy of your license, and you don't have a license, you got to figure out another way. Don't just mail your ballot in, because it'll be discounted and you may not have another opportunity to cast that ballot.
Yeah, I have to print mine out, which I was mad. I was like, why can't I just do this online, Jersey? Come on, Jersey. Yeah, and I'm like, now I got to send it someplace so that I can print it, because everything's not, you got a laptop. Yeah, but they're not asking us to count jelly beans in a jar. They're not, you know what I'm saying? They're not asking us a ridiculous poll tax, or requiring a poll tax.
Right.
There were people who actually went through a period of time just to vote, where they had to study, they had to name everybody that ever sat in the House of Representatives. Like they literally were tested before they could cast a vote. We're just asked to follow some instructions and to mail it in properly. That's it.
And No, I was going to say, I think we should also, I'm always one who presumes the best. I try to be as optimistic as possible. But I think we have to be clear that this is an election where literally the president is fighting not just for his position, but he's fighting to avoid jail. Because when he is no longer president, there are a whole host of criminal charges that may be awaiting him that cannot be pressed right now because he is the president, only because he's the president. There are people who are aligned with his agenda who are also a part of the electoral process. There are going to be challengers, people who come in who want to challenge every ballot that's cast. I was reading a report that in some jurisdictions now, municipalities are no longer under various protective orders. So various political groups will be able to hire people who may show up to poll sites with arms to challenge your right to vote, to challenge your signature. So we just have to be ready and be clear that not everybody wants us to vote. There are a whole lot of people who are still trying to do whatever they can to prevent us from exercising our right to the franchise. So we got to approach this with a very different level of intentionality than we tend to when it comes to casting a vote.
As a matter of fact, I haven't played this in a while, but Paul Weyrich, the father of the moral majority, who is also the architect of this current Republican ideology that we're following, he had this to say. Play cut 2.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
So why would you stay home? So why wouldn't you cast your vote? Why wouldn't you follow the instructions? Why wouldn't you do everything in your power? They don't want you to vote. And for those of you, because this has been a narrative that is really disturbing to me, all of the folk out there telling people not to vote, no black agenda, no vote, no reparations, no vote. They don't want your black ass to vote. Ask yourself why. Why don't they want you to vote? And if they don't want you to vote, why are you making it so easy? Listen, there are no perfect candidates. I'm not doing the electric slide to the polls, and I'm not filling this out with, Dear Great Pumpkin. I'm not happy about the choices that we have right now. But what I'm less happy about is the potential of having Trump again as president. I'm not happy about that. And I know for a fact, if we don't vote, he'll be president again. And Lord have mercy, he'll have a mandate. If this pandemic is any indication of what incompetence looks like, I'm looking for that island, Lurie, and ain't nobody coming. You'll be invited, but that's it.